Alright, hello and welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. Tonight we're going to be finishing the main story for the new patch. But I guess for the moment, since we need to buy some time first, I guess we should do the side story regarding the 12. Last time they showed up and claimed to be divinities true, which is rather interesting, but I guess we'll find out very shortly. Ah, there you are, Kota. This place has served as a base of operations for your investigation to Omega, did it not? How delightful to be here together. If you don't mind my making an observation, it seems you enjoy traveling with company. I do, it's something I've dreamed of for a long time. There's nothing like traveling with good friends. Is that so? What of yourself? Do you normally travel alone? In my wanderings, I much prefer to have solitude. Not that I avoid people or communities, mind you. As a matter of fact, I've been here on the trail of the Phantom... before, on the trail of the Phantom Realm itself. Though now that I think on it, I think something's gonna be a bit more major with Derek as we go on, but won't find it for a while. More often than not, those places where the Phantom Realm sightings are known to occur have a tradition of 12 worship. I dare hope we are on the right track. As I'm sure you know, Ralgar's Reach is home of the Temple of the Fist, the ancient headquarters of the Fist of Ralgar. Raised by the Mad King Theodoric, the temple lay abandoned before the Alamiga resistance claimed it for their operations. Yeah, Theodoric was a tyrannical king of Alamigo for a time. And after the Empire conquered it, this place was what the Alamigan resistance used as its home base. While I doubt very much literature has survived over the years, the people here possess some knowledge of the local faith. So let us split up and make inquiries and reconvene here to share our findings. Our character has done quite a bit of research into the various local faiths before, but this is the first time we've basically done one for our own, more or less. The Bloodstorm. You read the words inscribed on the monument. A storm of blood approaches fast, hell's open, heavens sweep. For no one's soul doth lie beyond the measure of his reach. Once upon a time, Lys explained to you the meaning, that we must prepare ourselves for strife and sorrow that will inevitably come. That's right, she explains this during, well, Stormblood itself. Stormblood was mostly themed around the liberation of Alamigo and Doma, but Doma was where it spent the majority of time. Now, it does make sense. Doma is basically the totally not Japan area of this game world, so it makes sense the Japanese writers would want to make their own would want to work with the Fantasy Japan theme they have going. But it does mean they felt like it was a bit rushed for getting the Alamiga stuff together at the end. And that's usually one of the main complaints against it when people find it a weaker expansion. I wouldn't call it a bad expansion myself, but I suppose it is against some pretty rough competition, especially since it's the one between Heaven's Ward and Shadowbringers, and that's kind of like Final Fantasy V being between the big fan favorites, 4 and 6. Or for that matter, Final Fantasy VIII, because that's between Final Fantasy VII, easily one of the top ones to this date, and Final Fantasy IX, a game which was it was a bit controversial at first launch, but nowadays it's generally agreed to be one of the stronger ones looking back. So lucky for us. But luckily they've all had they still have their dedicated fan bases. Indeed, 5 is probably the time. In particular, I haven't played 8, but I have played 5, and that's definitely where a lot of the tropes that Final Fantasy is known for, like the changing job systems, classing and subclassing and all that, that's where the game where it all started. As well as doing stuff like, Yeah, red mage being weaker than a dedicated white or black mage in exchange for having a bit of both was always known. But Final Fantasy V is when they got their signature dual cast or double cast. Double cast. They changed the name of it depending on the game, but yeah. Long story short, it lets them cast 2 spells in 1 turn. So basically, well, before they were versatility at the cost of power. That usually made them a bit too weak. But ever since they've gotten the dual cast ability, to cast multiple spells, they can at least compensate being weaker by being able to spam those spells, whereas a dedicated white or black mage can only really use one big one at a time. So there's a lot more tactical value in them ever since games like Final Fantasy V introducing their unique stuff. Learn anything thus far? The amicable resistance fighter. Oh, if it isn't Coda, is this man perhaps a friend of yours? When he last visited, he shared with me tales he'd heard on his journeys, and what amazing tales they were. If you have a time, I'd like to hear both of your stories. Alas, we're in some haste. We're investigating the worship of Ralgar and seek literature. Religious texts and like, could they still be found here? Just about all of it's gone, sadly. Destroyed by the Empire, not the Mad King before that. Yeah, the Empire was absolutely anti any kind of faith, really. Yeah. Oh, but we haven't lost everything. The mighty image of the Destroyer, the tales we share at the campfire, like the legend of our nation's founding. We still have these things, and they were a source of great comfort and strength in our darkest moments. I see. If you don't mind, I'd be obliged to hear your stories. Alright, Coda, rest should have this well in hand. Feel free to carry on as you were. I've debated playing Final Fantasy VIII on this channel. I've even thought about revisiting 9 because I ended up feeling a bit lukewarm at the end. I still liked it, quite a bit in fact, but not as much as I was hoping since, well, for most I know it's generally considered one of the more tightly designed and better written of the titles. So after completing 7, I was expecting to go in and find game even better than 7, but strangely I guess I might have had my hopes too high, perhaps. Or perhaps I simply missed something going through. I know I did miss a few of the number of the optional scenes there, but I don't know, it's hard to... It's times like this I wish I kept my VODs, because if I could potentially check the VOD, see if I did give it a fair shake, and I just didn't like it as much as I was hoping. Disappointing, but sometimes that's just how it happens. Some stuff will resonate with you. Like Nier Automata, however you pronounce it, that was a very special game to me on the personal level, but I was very careful with recommending to friends because while I knew it connected with me very personally, for most of my friends, I imagine they'll probably think, well, that was pretty good. I mean, it's not as highly suggested as. So, yeah, I didn't think it hit them as well as it did me because the stuff that it hit me for was a lot more personal that I don't think others can properly recreate. Not to say that I think they dislike it, quite the opposite, just you don't want to set expectations too high, you know? After all, a lot of stuff can surprise you largely because you weren't expecting it to be as good as it was. Yes, if you have business, please make it quick. I'm due to meet with someone any moment now. Forgive my delay. Why, if it isn't an adventure, you'd kindly escorted me to the Temple of the Fist. Are you studying monks perchance? This is from something way back in Stormblood. This is during one of the, just side quest dungeons, if I remember right. So it wasn't really anything major. If so, you ought to work together with me and my colleague. Few things are finer than joining heads with like-minded folk. It's appreciated, but I'd rather learn a bit more about the religion these monks are dedicated around. Oh, researching worship of the Destroyer, you say? Why didn't you mention it sooner? Oh. This is a copy of the Destructivity, a scripture from the Fist of Ralgar. The original is one of the few texts that survived the temple's razing, and is in the safekeeping of one Professor Eric. I went to the trouble of having this made for my colleague, only for her to say she doesn't need it, so I'll offer to you instead. Ah, lest you forget, this is your passion, not mine. I'm simply assisting you as a favor, and I'd thank you not to put us in danger. Ah, but in the but danger is the crucible of the monk, which the monk tempers body and mind. Ah, so sublime the monks. Well, we'd best return to our work. Until next time, adventurer. Do 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 do. Guess I'll be waiting at the designated location then. Time to move to the next area. I guess we'd best rendezvous with our buddies and see what they've learned, and then pool our resources so far. Oh, Koto, what were you able to learn? I was actually able to find one of the few religious texts remaining. A copy of one of the scriptures, you say? A moment while I skim over it. He reads pretty quickly, so we should be in good shape there. I see. This chapter appears to be a record of the construction of the great image of Ralgar, written in a style that suggests folklore was committed to parchment. When the deluge of the sixth umbral calamity threatened Eorzea, the ancestors of the Alamegans were guided safely by a comet. Believing that it was sent by Ralgar, they came to hold him in the highest. And this is very much of the tale I've been familiar with, but according to scripture, among those refugees who followed the comet, some claimed to have caught sight of Ralgar himself. Their accounts were passed down through the centuries, and worshippers of the destroyer pieced them together to give shape to yonder statue. And that statue was shockingly accurate, given what we've seen before. I must say, it bears more than a passing resemblance to the being we encountered. Were that Ralgar were a primal, the explanation for the similarities would be very simple. That is, the statue gives rise to a unified interpretation of Ralgar's appearance, which in turn would lead to the primal taking his form, yeah. However, this fails to account for what inspired the likeness in the first place. If the scriptures to believe, sightings during the sixth umbral calamity, yet for those witnesses to recognize Ralgar, they would have needed an agreed-upon idea of his appearance beforehand. If we then consider the history of 12 worship that already existed in the Third Astral Era, it would not be ridiculous to think these divinities existed even prior before that. For the record, this game is taking place during the 8th Astral Era right now. What? So, and each one lasts a bit over 1,000 years. Well, usually. Keyword being usually. The 7th Umbral lasted a lot longer than usual. It goes like first Astral, first Umbral, second Astral, second Umbral, and like that. So, third Astral, then there was a third Umbral, and then fourth Astral, and then fourth Umbral, and like that. So it's been at least a number of several thousand years then. Which makes sense. So the question is, did these beings give rise to their respective faiths, or are they primals born of them? That is the question of the hour, yes. I thought we'd made it clear. We're not summoned beings. Wait, you're watching us? You sure it's okay for you guys to just show up here? Oh, they're appearing as familiars. Well, I guess it makes sense. So, talk with Ralgar's voice. Since time immemorial, our domains have lain scattered across Eorzea. As a matter of fact, one of those in which you set foot is nearby. It is not unusual for mortals to glimpse us. That voice. Could they be? Byregot. Indeed, I am Byregot, and the hawk beside me is Ralgar. I shall elaborate upon my master's explanation. We disguise ourselves when we wish to observe the world without, for being seen our true forms would violate our laws of conduct. Yeah, one big thing people have been asking about the 12 is, why were they not here during the large wars between nations? Why were they not doing anything during the story of Endwalker, where, mind you, it's the only time the entire world's at risk of ending, but as Heidelin herself pointed out, if we fail, we won't get another chance. All we can do is flee and hope we can eventually find a place to hide from the End Singer, but... yeah, as I suspected, like most deities, they seem to have some sort of laws that bind them from how much they can interfere. Yet, though we similarly disguise our sanctums, veiling them in illusion, rents are known to manifest when surrounding ether is unstable. In such a time, should a gifted mortal chance be near, they may inadvertently catch sight of us. Of course, during an umbral calamity, etheric imbalance occurs on on this planet-wide scale, the ideal condition for seeing the Phantom Realm. Precisely how many times we've been seen, we ourselves have no way of knowing, but that is a sound assumption to make. Well, Baragot, I believe that shall suffice as an apology for our little deception, shall we? Indeed, that is all we're at liberty to reveal. Farewell to you, children of man. I guess it's a bit funny we've been pushing the primal angle for so long, but at the same time, Ema, it still does make us wonder, if these are true divinities, what makes them so special? Because like I said, last time, the Ancients had the ability to create things at will and were immortal, basically for as long as they felt like it, so... what do those gods have that those Ancients didn't have? And aside from theirs... where it concerns our identity and objective, these divinities certainly appear approachable. If what they said is true and their worship can be traced back to their sightings, that would serve to explain one thing. According to my research, in the field of comparative mythology, Rhalgr is often observed to bear many similarities with Ramu. Assuming both were inspired by Rhalgr of the Phantom Realm, their divergence may attribute to the differences in culture between humans and the Sylph. So you believe they gave rise to the prevailing faiths of Eorzea? Given the available evidence, yes, I'm inclined to, and yet none of this explains their presence. How and when did such beings of such power come into existence? And what makes them different compared to the Ancients? Because note that when we went back in time, the Ancients referred to themselves as mankind. They didn't see themselves as gods, and yet these do. Oh, 'tis you, Kryle. Has something happened? Truly? Very well, I shall take care of it. Kryle has recruited an acquaintance to aid in our investigation, an authority on mythology. I must go and receive her at the Sunken Temple of Korn, where she is currently conducting fieldwork after a brief detour to prepare a little something. Conveniently, Thanalan is also home to countless adherents of Naldthal. While I tend to my business, might ask the two of you to make inquiries at Ul'dah. Very well. Excellent, I shall join you as soon as I'm able, by your leave. It's kind of interesting that in the universe we're basically exploring our own religion. I mean, as said, when you create your character, you even choose a guardian deity, but... so it's just to be you and me in Ul'dah. I suppose it can't be helped. Apprehension is writ upon Derek's face. What strange manners for those who propose the survey to so promptly abandon it. I'll not lie, I'm not given to working one-on-one with another, but I suppose I'll agree to this arrangement. We'd best be on our way. As I recall, Melvin's Sicarium is still closed for construction, so let us try our luck with the Arzeneth ossuary. You'll have no objection to traveling separately. Good, I'll see you in Ul'dah then. Alright, so basically the temple. Yeah. The Guardian I chose is Nemia. Oh yes, after last stream, a friend of mine did point out that the Guardian did technically have a purpose at the start, but I didn't mention it for a reason. Well, I should stop being vague. What they're referring to is elemental elemental resistances, which basically, since I chose Nemia, who is water attribute, I'd have a bit more water resistance. But even when the game first launched in A Realm Reborn, that was a completely irrelevant stat. So even now that the concept has been removed and elemental resistances they still exist in the game, but they're only really used for specific boss mechanics. So that's why I felt even from the start it's pretty much only really here for role-playing purposes. But if there's a time for it to actually matter to the story, even if it's just a bit of unique dialogue, now is the time for it to matter. But who knows, they might just keep it intentionally vague for the purposes of role-playing stuff. Ah, you're here. I've arrived, Derek, just as I promised. Of the deific twins Nald and Thal, here they worship Thal, who keeps the realm of the dead and weighs the worth of men's souls. In contrast, Nald keeps the world of the living and oversees their financial fortunes. Their names are borne by many a location, and religious organizations, some extremely wealthy and powerful, exist to nurture faith in them. On the surface, it may seem strange that a hub of commerce, such as Ul'dah, could be home to such spiritual people, but it's actually quite logical when one considers that their religion is in essence a commerce itself. In any event, Nald Thal is truly an unusual divinity. What was originally held to be one god came to be worshipped as twins. Indeed, rather than two distinct entities, that which we encountered seemed to be a single being possessed with two personalities. Yeah, that's why I don't think they can be directly compared to the usual Greek deities that most of the gods are like. Did I mishear? They say they encountered Nald Thal. And while his appearance differs somewhat to the divinities worshipped, it cannot be denied there are striking similarities in nature as well. I should probably warn you, we're starting to attract attention. Forgive me, this is hardly the place for such a conversation. Let us continue it elsewhere. Yeah, as nice as it is, we probably shouldn't let it get out that we've been meeting with the deities so far. Just teleported us out. 'Twas careless of me to speak openly of our encounter within a place where he's worshipped. Hereon, I shall exercise greater caution. I thank you for alerting me to my indiscretion, and ask that you keep it between us. Hey, mistakes happen. Now then, to finish our conversation, as I mentioned, though the Nald Thal is worshipped by men appears somewhat different, there are undeniable similarities in their nature. I believe we may report this much to Graha. With that, our work here is done. Rather than waiting for our companion, maybe we should seek him out of the temple? He mentioned needing to take a detour. Where we set out now, we should be able to catch up to him. After all, we hardly know one another. Rather than loiter with an unfamiliar person, it would be better to use our time productively, wouldn't you agree? Yeah, that sounds pretty logical. Then let us head to the sunken temple of Quarn at once. Little Alamigo. That's where a number of the Alamigan refugees were. After the... Yeah. Fighting. Yeah. It looks a little decrepit and run down. That's because it kind of is a hole in the ground. When the Empire took Alamigo some 30 years ago in-game, I think it was, a lot of them tried to go to Ul'dah, but naturally Ul'dah doesn't have the resources to accommodate all the refugees, so some of them made settlements like this. Though unfortunately, yeah, it's very difficult for them to make a living there. Ul'dah does try to help by having some of the Brass Blades, their police force, to help keep the peace there, but it's, like I said, it's kind of a hole in the ground, so there's only so much they can do to keep things in good shape. Collapsed Scholar. Hello, Derek. Oh, you're alright. If you hear me, please say something. You're here, thank goodness. I found this woman collapsed. Though I can see no injuries by her attire, she seems to be some manner of scholar. Water, food in my bag, please. I see. Kota Major. Broke my legs from fall damage. Hello, welcome to the stream. And sure, feel free to drop by. Feel free to drop in. I see. Kota may trouble you to find her bag. I will stand lookout in the meantime. Oh, she must have dropped her bag somewhere. Since I cover a lot of stuff, I'm used to people dropping in and out of the stream whenever they feel inclined, so yeah. My stream is definitely one that's good for dropping in anytime something catches your eye. Here it is. This looks like the bag. Examining it, you find a skin with a little water, but there appears to be no provender. For now, you decide to take the water. Well, the water is the most important part for someone's survival. Food we can procure in other ways, but water in the desert is, absolutely the most valuable. So thirsty. Nay, empty water skin. Even an incurable optimist would feel compelled to say this water skin is nearly empty. Not enough. Food, I need food as well. I've not saved dried meat, tough as leather. Do you have anything easier to consume? Well, I've got a few foods in my inventory I can offer. Oh, Kota Derek, what are you doing here? Actually, that can wait. Yeah, they probably had... Steady Snowgim. I brought you the Archon loaf and coffee, made sweet and creamy just as you like it. Ooh, Archon loaf. It has the nutrients you need, but its taste is usually not very, I'm reborn, washed down with sweet beverage. The life-giving nutrients of Archon loaf permeate my being from head to toe. Well, I guess when you're starving, anything will do. Thank you, kind stranger. However you knew my preferred source of sustenance, you are truly a godsend. Oh, it's you, Graha. It's you, Graha. What brings you here? I don't recall mentioning my fieldwork. It's for my research into the Beladians' worship of Azamia, you see. Oh, haven't you heard from Kryl? The students are presently investigating the 12 and would prevail upon your expertise. May I introduce Snow Guy, an expert mythologist. She's a collector of the students, and like many a Charlian scholar, is passionate about her endeavors to the point of forgetting to eat. Yeah, that sounds pretty normal for Charlians. The entire city of nerds. Seeing as how she has recovered, may I ask the two of you to tell her about the Phantom Realm? The 12 abide in the Phantom Realm and you exchange not only words, but blows besides. Incredible. And your description of the domains, the thunderous tower in one, a sweltering city in the other, are precisely as the heavens of lightning and fire are depicted in legend. In ancient times, worshippers of the 12 believed that there exists 7 heavens and 7 hells. Aetherology has since established that departed souls return to the ethereal sea, but it seems those afterlife domains are more than just inventions of mortal imagination. As a pursuer of myths, I must say it feels somewhat anticlimactic to suddenly have these revelations given to me. Yeah. More than that, I'm dying to know more, which is to say, please, allow me to join your investigation. Yeah, the thing about the Final Fantasy 14 universe here is there's no afterlife per se. When someone dies, their souls return to the life stream of the planet, and that the energy of the life stream is used to give birth to new life. So, while 7 heavens and hells existing is perfectly apparently a real thing, they apparently aren't used as an afterlife in this universe. They're used for, I guess, just domains of the gods. And we would, of course, welcome your presence. Without further ado, let us head to the Omphalos. Kryl awaits us there. Oh yes, right. There's no easy teleporter there, so I'm gonna have to go walk the old-fashioned way. Well, that's fine. I'm almost done with this quest, and then I can get back to the main quest as the stream title promises. I'm pretty sure once we get to Cryo, they'll do one last recap, tell us to prepare for the next gods that will challenge us, and then end it there. That's usually what these quests amount to for the early ones. For better or for worse, there is very little story to the. There's not going to be very much story until the third one. I think I mentioned, but I was actually kind of disappointed by the Ivalice raids, which I know is heresy because that's actually one of the most popular ones, but it felt like they really didn't do much besides remember Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII for the first two, and then the third one they just dump everything on you. That is the only time in the game I have ever had to skip through dialogue because I just couldn't follow it. The only time so far at the time of stream, I suppose, in case it happens again, but yeah, that was too much. I mean, many will usually list the Nier Automata raid as the least favorite, and I can genuinely understand that. That one's kind of a bittersweet one about the the Drakengard universe was invading the Final Fantasy one, but it's, well, because of the way Drakengard and the Nier series go, it's inevitably going to end very bittersweet, if not a bit unsatisfying, so I genuinely don't blame anyone who dislikes it, but I have to rate the Ivalice as the biggest disappointment, if only because it took ages to actually do anything. I mean, for anyone who's played Final Fantasy Tactics will understand why this is a big deal. Basically, we see one character turn into a Lakavi demon right in front of our eyes in the first wave of raids, but nobody even mentions it until the second one, and even then they don't go into it until the third, so, yeah, for anyone who's played through this Tactics series, they'll know precisely how big a deal it is for them to do something like that and not even discuss it to any extent. Just goofy. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome, Snow Guy. I'm glad you could join us. Ryle, how delightful I am to see you again. I understand you've been doing a fine job leading the students. But may I say what a lovely place this is? At a glance, this appears to be the highest of heavens of legend, the seventh heaven. Oh dang, can we get a drink here from Tifa? And ooh, if those symbols aren't representing the other heavens. I take it those must be their respective gateways. I should like to pay them all a visit. But for Snowgeim's benefit, let us review what we've learned so far, and thus deliberate our next step. Yep, as I expected, it's mostly just going to be a recap, and the setup for the next wave. And the gods appeared before us in Ralgar's reach. Though they were disguised as unassuming creatures, their laws forbid them from showing their true forms outside their realm. Yet in the event that ambient ether becomes unstable, such as during an umbral calamity, it's possible for the realm, and indeed the gods themselves, to be glimpsed by mortals. And such sightings, we believe, have given rise to the various faiths practiced throughout Eorzea. As we confirmed in Ul'dah, Nald'thal worshipped by the people and the Nald'thal we have encountered have more similarities than they do differences. In the course of exploring the Omphalos, two things caught my attention. The first is the gate which lies the innermost area. If each of the other 6 gates lead to an elementally aspected heaven, and we stand in the 7th as Snowgrim says, then what then lies beyond that last gate? The second is this monument. It harbors some kind of magic unlike anything I've ever seen before. I will endeavor to decipher it, but it will take some time. Divinities that have existed since time immemorial, who then abide in domains resembling heavens of legend, why have they chosen to reveal themselves to mortals seeking battle? Unless they favor us with more of their secrets, 'twould seem this monument holds the key to solving the mystery. Indeed, much and more lies yet lies beyond our understanding, but we'll keep chasing the truth together. As I'm sure you'll agree, though, this is tiring work, both mentally and physically. We need pace ourselves. To which end, I suggest we return to Revan's Toll and have a rest before we embark on the next stage of our investigation. Yeah, and of course, while imagine the answer will just be their laws forbid it, why would the gods not do anything during the end of the world? Although I suppose they might go with through other worlds. But then again, the End Singer was explicitly attempting to end all life. So you'd think they'd care about that. Well, perhaps, like I said, they probably just have a law that prevents them from interfering in the course of mortal lives, even when their end is coming. So rarely do I get to simply chat with colleagues. I'd fairly forgotten what it felt like. And indeed, it's quite fitting we should do here at the Seventh Heaven. Fitting? That's an understatement if I've ever heard one. The seventh and the highest of heavens, which rules over the remaining six, is right here in Mordone all this time. This isn't fitting, my friends. It's destiny. Well, I'm glad Snowgime is feeling pretty enthusiastic about the whole thing, but... You are obviously well-versed in the myths surrounding the heavens and hells. If you don't mind, I should like to hear your thoughts on them. Simply having the heavens and hells as the domain of their respective deity makes sense, even if they don't have an afterlife purpose in this, at least not in this universe. Best as they are on their research, it doesn't take much to stoke their passions. My apologies if it makes you uncomfortable. Yeah, what's going on, Derek? Having always traveled alone, I admit I'm admittedly not too familiar with such a lively atmosphere, but I do not mislike it. Hey, even if you adventure by yourself, sometimes you need buddies. By the way, the two of you arrived at the sunken temple rather quickly. Did something happen? Well, as pleasant as this has been, it's past time we return to the annex, and the paperwork for this commission isn't going to complete itself, I'm afraid. Oh yeah. And I shall take myself to the Omphalos. There's so much more I'd like to see. And I believe I'll go for a walk nearby. It's getting a little warm in here. Alright, do take care now. Once I turn this one, I'm pretty face an explorer. Once I turn this quest, I believe this will be the end of it, and I can head over to the main story quest. So apologies to anyone who patiently waited over half an hour to finish this. Oh, he's right here. Whoops. Oh, Coda, it's pleasant, isn't it? The smells and sounds of the tavern makes one feel alive. And afterwards, stepping outside alone and breathing the cool air, I like that just as much. While we wait developments, I'll remain here in Revan's Toll. If there's any tidings, rest assured I will share them with you. Thank you for your help thus far. I doubt so much could have been accomplished without you. Yep. Alright, let's go meet Matsuya. I guess while we're waiting, I can talk about a what-if thing, because there's only, unfortunately, a lot of the 1.0 stuff with the original director is only, producer and director is only barely known, unfortunately. But generally, the evidence seems to suggest that the original scions of the Seven Dawn, that is, the ones that we start out with, there was 12 of them, and so there was a lot of speculation they were originally intended to be incarnations of the 12 gods. But after Yoshi P took over during the Realm Reborn, they decided to rewrite quite a bit of it. I suppose it's impossible to say for sure which would have worked out better than another, or if this direction, even if I can't even say this direction's necessarily better because we just don't know. The original 1.0 only had the bare basics planned out, and I imagine Realm Reborn wasn't much better. Sure, they had the general world info down, I'm sure, and a general idea of what the main villains like the Empire and the Ascians were supposed to be all about at the time, but I believe in one of the recent live letter interviews, the Yoshi P mentioned that he only had the absolute details down, written down during around Stormblood, and before then they were still debating on what direction to take the story. Oh, Kota, I was glad to see you returned unharmed. Are you finished with the boat then? Yes, thank you. Ah, anything the village desperately needs? I suppose Kazuo's lost as it is the hardest. I've been trying to find buyers for my fish, but although I sell a few here and there, it's much more difficult than it was before. Everyone's been struggling to rebuild their lives. For now, we're just banding together best we can. Yeah, that's right. We were in the middle of deciding how to spend the hidden treasure. Right? Unfortunately, there are a few secrets from the original 1.0 that we will never get answers for anymore, such as the strange amber tonberries in the Gridania forest area. Granted that they were able to make other mysteries that are interesting on their own, and it's also possible that it was never really planned what they actually wanted to do with those things before, or either. I can show some of it later, actually. Actually, I might be able to do so now, if you don't mind a short detour. Now, let's see here. Gridania. Is this it? No, this is not. Central Shroud. Is this it? Oh, no. No. Is this it? No, it is not. South Shroud. Oh, actually, I think it is Central Shroud. Let me see. I think keyword think it is in Sorel Heaven, so let's do that real quick. Because I do find this interesting, and not everyone who watches these follows this game, so I figure it might be a nice little distraction. If not, well, you'll probably be watching the VOD or something, so you can probably just skip to when I return. But this won't be very long, I can assure you of that. I'm pretty sure this is the area. Unfortunately, the amber tonberries were removed during the lore. They were destroyed during the calamity, during Bahamut's attack. But the one in here remains. Amber scale rock. Basically, long story short, this is apparently a dragon. Piece of amber in the shape of a dragon. The fact it's molded differently and slightly glowing compared to everything else is no coincidence. There was supposedly going to be many speculate there was intended to be a story behind that, but they never ended up doing it, unfortunately. North Shroud. Gilmore Ruins is where the Tomberries were. I can show where that was before. Whoops, wrong way. Here we are. Looks like a fate's going on there. Here it is. During the 1.0, there were no rocks or anything here. This was just a circle with the entrance to Gelmora in the middle here where these plasmoids are. And all the way around here, I don't remember if it was in the, I don't remember if it was on the part here or if it was on here, but there was a circle of amber tonberries around here, surrounding it. And the speculation was that they were real tonberries that were turned to amber for some way. But the story of the tonberries has since been retconned. Those are now tied to the Scholar storyline now. Yeah, the truth behind the tonberries and the truth behind them is now tied to the Scholar storyline, so that is unfortunately, here we are. So yeah, whatever story was originally planned, we will never know. They did eventually go into the story of Gelmora, and that's what led to the Deep Dungeon, the Palace of the Dead. Greetings and welcome, traveler. If this is your first visit to Thavne, then you must try my special Amrlasi. The refreshing zest cannot be beat. What could such a wonder cost? Normally I part with 3 bottles for the generous price of 19,800 gil, but for you, a moment ago, it's even 10,000. You're practically stealing from me. Yeah, our character's not falling for that. Still not turning a profit these days, eh? Times are harsh, my friend. The world may no longer be on fire, but we're still sifting through the ashes, so to speak. Sisters, spare me. We might as well have that ugly tower back for the scant few travelers we see these days. I myself barely have enough coin to buy local prices. I tell you, if I didn't charge the odd adventurer a small fortune for afternoon tea, I'd be scavenging scraps on the street. Yeah, but price gouging tourists isn't exactly helpful either. That just exchanges one problem for another. Excuse me. How fares the port? Well, it's in shambles, isn't it? The trade routes are open once more now that the danger has passed, certainly, but no small number of merchants have had to sell their ships to make meet in the short term. Add that the sailors we lost during the final days, and it's little wonder the flow of exports is no more than a pitiful trickle. If Kalzul and his consortium were still with us, I'm sure we'd have found a way to turn our fortunes around. Now that was a man who got things done, God rest his soul. You're speaking with local key figures and gain understanding. Varshan awaits. I will say that I do appreciate the story taking the time to go through the cleanup after. Yeah, the world is safe, but people have to rebuild their lives, in some cases quite literally. And man, the final days was absolutely horrendous, so hopefully that fortune can do something to help. It would seem my stint on Vitra's back did not go unnoticed. I couldn't take 2 steps before another Thavanarian was thanking me profusely for saving their home. Ah, my advisor's return. I just made it back myself. Why do you retain this vessel now that your true form is known? You could have flown across the island in a fraction of the time. Be that as it may, the sight of a massive creature descending from the sky can be startling, to say the least, and there are a few places I can enter comfortably without risk of flattening some cart or stall. Yeah, that would probably just make a bad situation worse. Fair enough. Yeah, being able to adjust size is a pretty big deal. I guess that explains why Sieg likes to make the human form instead of the Fafnir dragon form. Now, as for my inquiries, the people of Palakistan were unanimous in their reply. They are surviving. Resources were stretched to the limit when refugees were pouring in, but they preserved some assistance from Yedlamad. Yet from what I understand, they've always been an independent community, hunters and foragers and the like, and I was assured that the jungle provides for their needs for the most part. Palakistan has weathered the disaster better than most, it seems. I myself heard good news and bad. The quarrymen were cautiously optimistic, having just sold a full wagon of giant skull to a foreign trader, But such visitors are few and far between. Compared to our best years, the weight of stone leaving Thavnair has been light indeed. Our nation is small and isolated, its prosperity dependent on a steady stream of exports. We must identify any obstacles to the flow of trade so we may begin working to remove them. Tell me, what did you learn in Akul and Yelmad? Well, the big one is the traders need ships for transporting goods. I see, without a dedicated buyer, the average fisherman must struggle to offload his daily catch, which is why I believe we should first address the lack of ships and shortage of able-bodied sailors. I am reminded of a child I spied as I made my way back to the palace. His father lost at sea when the beast sunk their vessel. So many variations of the same tragic tale, repeated over and over. So many lives lost. Yeah, there's more than a few during the Endwalker story, and some during the first as well, now that I think about it. Enough grief to drown if we let ourselves be overcome, but we will not. O Destinian, I will consider the perspectives you brought me and devise a plan to help my people confront this adversity. Come, I would like you to be in attendance when I announce the proposal for my planned functionalities.
I thank you for your attendance.
Ah, nice. I'll take this time to take a drink while the cutscene plays, since it's partially voiced.
The riches the Radiant Host have retrieved were hoarded in Al-Zadal's name. A fortune I set aside for a future day of need.
Yeah, this is about as much as probably the rainiest day he could have saved for, that's for sure. Glad he thought ahead.
And lo, that day hath come. May it aid our wounded city in reclaiming its vibrancy and vigor. In better times, I would leave such a task to our capable Ahawan. God's rest his soul. Finding myself bereft of his counsel in the here and now, I will assume the responsibilities of mine office directly. Firstly, the treasure shall be sold for more convenient currency. Thence, invested into the trading port of Yedliman. Our merchants must have their operations restored, their ships rebuilt. Commerce must flow once more.
Beatra taking the role of satrap directly to begin, and this governance is a pretty big deal, both symbolically, since he's finally stepping from the shadows, as well as the sense that he's achieving what Ashawan was hoping he would do eventually as well.
None was spared the tragedy of the final days. Of this, I am well aware.
I guess it also carries the implication that Ashawan could never be replaced, and so he's not going to replace him. He's simply going to take the role directly. Or at least that's my take. At least that's my thoughts.
But an absence was created by the loss of Karazal's consortium. And by filling it, we provide new means for our fishermen, our artisans, and others to bring their wares to distant markets.
Those uniforms aren't half bad, actually.
And what of the children who were left without family to care for them?
There's been more than a few, that's for sure.
That is a concern which weigheth heavily upon my mind. A simple gift of coin will soon be exhausted, leaving these young souls adrift on the fringes of our society.
Yeah, unfortunately, just giving someone money is only short term. That's why it's important to get their economy back going again, because simply gifting the merchant they need to live and stuff would just be a short term. That's why he wants to restore the ships and stuff to get their economy going again, so that people can begin their lives again.
Nay, a proper solution is needed, one which doth guarantee their welfare for years to come.
And yeah, you can't just give kids money because, well, they're children. They can't properly perform work to keep themselves going. No, they should just, well, you know what I mean. Yeah. They require a much more long-term solution.
Thou hast surely seen how other nations rise to meet this challenge, adventurer. What dost thou deem the wisest course?
A way to care for the children lost, whose parents were lost. Taxes levied on them and trade profits exchange for investment. I think takes a whole village working together to find a solution, though, if we remember from before.
Of course. We must all look out for one another. Let us put this idea into practice. A contract shall be written, requiring all who receive of our Zadal's treasure to commit a portion of their future earnings towards the running of an orphanage. Now, such an influential policy is deserving of a worthy name.
With poor Kazal's name might not be a bad idea. He was lost. One of the ones lost during the final days, after all.
A fitting candidate. Kazal should be remembered, not as the blasphemy which terrorized Thavnair, but as a hard-working and generous man who brought much wealth to our shores.
Indeed, he was simply the first victim of the blasphemy curse. The witch's curse. It wouldn't do to remember him for that event, when he was simply the first of what would eventually be countless victims.
Do any among you object to this proposition? Many here lost loved ones to the beasts.
In that time of strife, any one of us could have broken. Any one of us may have been taken by despair. When I think of Kalzal, I feel no hatred. Only a stinging regret that we could not save him as well. Isn't that right, men?
This bodes well for that boy. Murad, was it? Perhaps he can cut ties with that shady peddler.
Then let it be done. Henceforth, this initiative shall be known as the Kalzal Foundation. Nabdeen, thou art to assemble a patrol and ensure that no child in this city liveth in squalor. Clerks, see to the management of our funds and make haste. Our citizens must not suffer a day more than is necessary.
Dragon and man, side by side in pursuit of a brighter morrow. I'm reminded of Ishgard.
Well, it took quite a bit of violence to get to that point, but at least Ishgard is at that point now. Yes, I agree. And at least this nation was able to avoid that. Avoid the bloodshed, I mean. Let's see here. Sycon Bavaroy. Sliced Sycon floats atop a fluffy bed of chilled gelatin in this tasty dessert. Ooh, that sounds good. Compote. Sycon are boiled in sugar water to create these sweet bite-sized treats. And giant potato pancakes. Giant potatoes are mashed, mixed with eggs, and then cooked to create these light and fluffy treats. This is tanky. This is for healers. Guess I'll go with this one then, since I'm a DPS main. Which would seem my stint. Oh, he's the same thing as before. Well, let us continue now. Ah, my advisor's return. I've just. Oh, did I just skip that? That's odd. I thought I selected that. That's odd. I must have accidentally canceled it. Whoops. Oh, I see. I clicked decline by accident. Whoops. Alright, now Estinian should have something new to say. Vitra is warming to his role as satrap. Clearly all those years behind the curtain were not spent napping. The veteran Radiant wishes to share his gratitude. Okay, let's see what he's got to say. Thank you for putting forth Khazal's name. Those whose lives were enriched will take comfort in seeing his legacy honored. You'll forgive me for not speaking sooner, but I bear a message from Archon Ishtola. She asks that you meet her at the High Crucible at your earliest convenience. Understood, thank you. Ishtola must have finished her study of the Void Gate. Shall we hear what she has to say, then? I will go with you. I thought the satrap would be too busy setting up the foundation. My clerks have been the well-oiled cogs of this administration since Ashuan assumed the office. They understand what needs to be done. And I'm curious to learn what conclusions your Archon has reached concerning the gate's unique construction as well. As you wish. Allow me to lead the way, Your Excellency. Wait a minute, that guard is a dancer. Because those are chakrams he has on his waist. Eat him. Crucible. It looks like there's no Ethernet shard near there, so I'll just go to the main one in the city and run. For one who claims it is too late to save his sister, Vitra seems awfully interested in whatever revelations Ishtola might have to share. Yeah, that's about my thought as well, Estinian. Shall we hear what your scholarly comrade has to say?
Right, here we all are.
You discovered something new.
I took a closer look at that device. I was able to determine how it keeps the Void Gate sealed, but not how it might instead be employed to expand the opening. For that, I would need to reference the technique developed by Vitra's alchemists, no records of which appear to have survived the intervening years.
You emphasized appear?
We know this, so why have you sent for us? Have you learned aught of value or not?
Leave it to Estinian to get straight to the point.
Patience, good sir. One must introduce the subject before launching into specifics. From what we understand, travel between worlds is accomplished by passing through the nebulous rift which exists between them. Picture, if you will, the moment you were called to the first.
I did seem to get teleported through a long, twisting wormhole, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
You touched a focus of some kind to help the Exarch pinpoint your location. His summoning spell then channeled the energies of the Crystal Tower to begin your journey to his world.
Oh, that's right. We found that mysterious object that seemed to be from the future, and that served as the catalyst for the Crystal Exarch to find us. And the Crystal Tower has a functionally infinite amount of energy to power the spell. It's not actually infinite, but it might as well be for the purposes of what we've been able to use it for so far. But we don't quite have access to it here, unfortunately.
The magics tore a hole in the wall separating source and shard, and cast you into the intervening nothingness. In that place, the laws of nature hold no sway.
Scenes from the various expansions prior to Shadowbringers are in those little crystals.
Yet even through this realm of temporal and spatial instability, you were borne safely to your destination in the first. The feat that guided you across such an unimaginable distance, both physical and metaphorical, was nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, generally people aren't designed to be teleporting between worlds like that, between dimensions.
Then what of the many Voidsent found in the source? Who guides them here, and how?
An excellent question. Though there are several methods by which the Void's denizens might intrude upon our world, the rituals of summoning are the most typical. For example, let us consider the Gargoyle, a creature of middling power.
Ah yes, the gargoyles.
To call upon such an entity, the prospective summoner must force open a void gate. The portal lasts but a moment and is relatively small, allowing only an imp or other lesser being to squeeze through with their physical body intact. Our more powerful gargoyle, however, is too large for that. Creating a gate big enough for him would require vast amounts of energy, far beyond the reserves of any one mortal practitioner.
He's far stronger than
Instead,
an imp,
it is far
but
more common to bring over only the entity's soul. We had a taste of that ourselves when a certain Exarch dragged us to the first.
yeah. He tried to pull us through, but accidentally got the soul of our allies first. And basically they ended up with hard light bodies while in the first. So during Shadowbringers, they technically were just souls in a hard light body rather than physical like we were.
And just as our bodies remained in our world, the Voidsent's physical form is left behind in the 13th.
And so they possess the gargoyle statues. It's in order.
Once at its destination, the summoned soul is granted a temporary shell to inhabit. In the gargoyle's case, a stone effigy has proven a suitable vessel.
Wait. You said that Voidsent must be called here deliberately by someone in the source, reeled in like a fisherman with his catch.
That's actually a rather apt way of putting it.
Exactly. For a being to navigate the chaos of the rift, with or without form, There must needs be a guiding agent on the other side.
So we need someone on the other side.
When the hordes poured forth from Alag's Great Gate, it was the technologists who drew them through. Though to my knowledge, planar fissures are in essence natural passages between our world and the void, which require no such guidance to traverse. Why is only the boundary between the Source and the 13th so fragile? So much so that it often tears open of its own accord.
True, it's the void. The 13th was reduced to the. Ooh, that's allowed. That's actually a really good point. The void and creatures being teleported from them is pretty common, usually by dark sorcerers and that sort of thing, but why not from other ones as well? Why could those from the first not be taken here, for example? There's certainly sin eaters that could have made
that
it.
mystery is key to understanding travel between the source and its reflections.
And the only thing that makes the 13th different from all the other reflections, the other dimensions, is that it was lost completely to darkness. And so that world ended and created its just permanent world of darkness.
And how do you intend to get your answers?
No, the danger is too great.
Perhaps. But what some call danger, others think of as adventure.
Well, I've already traveled from the
When you
source
listen to my
first.
tale, never mind that the means to expand the gate has been lost to the ages. Even could you force the portal wide enough, you would be greeted by an army of murderous horrors the very instant you step through.
Sounds like a few more notches on my scythe.
I assure you I was most attentive. And I agree that to go alone would be certain death. But if I were to bring along one who has already braved the 13th and humbled the cloud of darkness, well, I imagine my chances would be much improved.
Especially since, story-wise, we're much stronger than we were when we first defeated the Cloud of Darkness. Granted, we might not be able to stop her for good, but we were able to defeat her long enough to undo the covenant with Emperor Zand. And get and save everyone who is lost in there, including Nero. So much for taking it easy.
Since when were you one for the quiet life? Once again, I put my life in your ever-reliable hands. That said, as much as I would like to march straight back to the Void Gate, there is the small matter of being unable to open it without the Satrap's personal authority.
As I've said before, I will grant you and yours any boon you choose to name, provided it does not endanger my people.
Well,
You have
luckily.
my word that we will take every precaution. Not a single void scent will be allowed to threaten Radzatan, assuming we manage to expand the portal in the first place.
You have a plan.
Well, even if one or two does get out, the good news is it's on a ruin on an abandoned island in the Bounty Sea, I mean. Which means they won't be able to do too much damage, or at least the damage they'll be capable of will be very limited, so... Should be easy to keep the situation under control.
Actually, I had hoped you might help us with that. I presume the alchemists you retained supplied you with some explanation of their methodology.
That they did. House Daemir was overseeing the project.
Daemir. Ah, yes. The family associated with the great work.
Ah yes, that's right. Well, the alchemists from back then have passed away by now, and they didn't write down their work. Vitra was there during the time, and could very well have had at least some level of knowledge of what they did.
I did not fully comprehend the theory, but their research began with a void scent which had slipped through the fissure. After a thorough examination, They created an arcane simulacrum possessed of similar qualities. A man-made void scent, if you will. It was apparently indispensable in their efforts to enlarge the gate.
A man-made voice.
Interesting. A man-made creature of darkness.
Yes. Being great admirers of the Archons, House Daemir submitted detailed notes to Charlene's official committee. They expected praise and accolades for their simulacrum, and were thus devastated to be informed that their work had been classified as prohibited material.
The good news is this does mean Charlene should have the information, and while it's likely in their forbidden archives, well, I think we might be able to at least pull a few strings to get our hands on it.
If that's true, then those notes might still be stored in a forbidden archive somewhere. Not Google, of course, since that library had yet to be built. Which leaves us with...
the restricted section of the Numenon.
Yes, it may very well hold a copy.
Yeah, Charlene refuses to delete stuff even when they think it's extremely dangerous, just because they're obsessed with archiving everything, so...
I say we head directly to Charlene.
sounds like a plan to me. Looks like we're gonna investigate the void. And also, yes, for anyone who watched the previous stream and thought, wait, how'd you...
anticipate needing help to reach the high shelves? I see myself being of little use. Go on ahead. I still need to find Mirad and tell him about the Kalzal Foundation.
Oh, nice. Alright, let's wait till the cutscene ends before I say that then.
Let us be on our way as well.
Sounds good.
They are resolved to venture into the void. Do I sit idly by?
Well, if you have a class you can classify yourself as, you could join us in that inevitable dungeon we'll be doing. Alright, yeah, anyone who watched the previous stream and was all, wait, why'd you guess X-Death when that's clearly Golbez? Yeah, feel free to make fun of me for that, because I genuinely have no idea how I mixed those guys up. I mean, I could say Final Fantasy has a bunch of villains who are just dudes in full-body suits of armor, but that's just me making excuses, let's be honest. I don't really have a legitimate reason to be mixing them up like that. If we were to enter the restrictive archives with the minimum fuss, we must secure permission of the forum. First, however, we shall need to enlist the cooperation of a member to broach the matter on our behalf. Who do you think might be inclined to assist us? No one springs to mind? What about Montague? He did come to Graha's defense during the inquiry after all. To settle, let's head to the phenomenon and see if he's willing to help us secure more. I suppose they just really want us to... Oh, I think they said they made it so that we can now teleport with our person here. Let's see. Let's see if she does. Yep, she does. If I was pressed to name our allies in the forum, Scholar Montague would certainly be on the top of the list. Hopefully he agrees to aid us in our request. Discuss the studium. I apprenticed to Master Matoya at the age of 7 and labored under her tutelage for a full decade. I never had the chance to attend the studium. Neither did Thancred, as I recall. Soon after Master Louis Sois took him off the streets, he was put in the care of another Archon. He was a rigorous and practical education. His was a rigorous and practical education of the arts of espionage and survival. I sometimes wonder what my life would have been had I pursued studies here instead. Tea at the last stand after a day of lectures. Oh, that does sound lovely. Afternoons with friends spent sipping tea, debating theories. Still, I wouldn't give up my time with Master Matoya for the world. The dank cave I studied in was far from the bright, airy halls of the academia as one could get, but it was a wondrous, magical childhood nonetheless. Shola and Matoya have a lot of arguments when they meet during the story, yeah, but it's very clear they do care about one another. I mean, Shola did take on her master's name as an alias when she needed to hide her true name, after all. I think that's the Heidelin astrologian weapon that person has. But I'll worry about that later. Heidelin weapons look really nice, but... Ah, visitors, quite esteemed ones at that. What may I do for you? Pray forgive the intrusion, Scholark, but we were hoping you might help us secure permission to enter the Numenon's restricted archives. Oh, no furtive forays into the stacks this time, huh? I applaud this newfound sense of propriety, yet in all this wide world of comparative serenity, what so compels you to disturb a vault of forbidden wisdom? Actually, I think during one of the streams after the Endwalker ended, I did speculate that going to the 13th and finding a way to restore it from the void world it's become was a potential storyline they could do coming up. Fascinating, I had no idea such a technique existed. I would have been surprised if you had. If my assumption's correct, the research led by House Daemir has lain dormant in the Charlian archives for many centuries. And if you unearth this research, what then? Surely you don't intend to cross over into the void. That is, in fact, precisely what we intend. To what end, pray tell? To develop a method of traversing the rift, for one, that I might keep my word to a distant friend. Yeah, she promised to reunite with her friends in the first. Sentiments aside, I have also journeyed to the end of existence. I have heard, felt, and thought endlessly about the truth of our world and the echo of its future, and yet I want to understand everything, to unravel it all down to its last secret. What scholar worthy of the name wouldn't force open a void gate or two if a grand revelation was the promised reward? Ha 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 ha, marvelous. An audacious proposal worthy of Master Matoya herself. After hearing the whys and wherefores, I for one do not believe you will use the knowledge for ill. I see no reason not to present your request for the forum's consideration. Although your petition would be better received, you also had the support of another well-placed acquaintance. Why, Master Fortuneau, of course. He can hardly ignore an earnest request from his dear children's most treasured comrades. I was hesitant to approach him directly, but there's no denying that having Master Fortuneau on our side would tip the balance in our favor. Very well, we shall pay a visit to the Levier estate and plead our case. I can only hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I haven't rewatched the Endwalker VODs in a while. Ah, one last thing before you go. I would consider a personal favor if you might share with me the discoveries you make with the Void. My appetite for knowledge is every bit as insatiable as yours, I'd wager, so if you could find a way of indulging an old man's curiosity. Of course, Scholark, we will be sure to pass on any revelations. Maybe I should hide the weapon, since, you know, a big intimidating scythe is rather intimidating. Alright, I can't just teleport there, I need to use the Ethernet thing so that my, escort partner follows me. Oh, does she have something new to say, by the way? Jay seemed optimistic, but I doubt convincing Fortuneau to champion our cause will be as simple as showing up at his doorstep. Alright, well, it's shaping... I guess it makes sense. This whole expansion has had a lot of Final Fantasy IV involved, so Golbez and the Four Fiends being involved. And in that case, while the Four Fiends' identities do change from game to game, this does mean we're not dealing with the Final Fantasy I set. We're dealing with the 4, so that would be Scarmiglione, Cognazzo, Barbarica, and Rubicante. With Rubicante being the most notable one. He actually had a bit of a... For anyone who hasn't played Final Fantasy IV, Rubicante was the member of the Four Fiends who actually had a bit of a story arc to him, while the others were mostly just standard bosses. House Livier Butler. Ah, Master Kota, Mistress Ashtola, how may I be of service? We've come to speak with Master Fortuno. Is he home by chance? Yes, the Master is in residence. I shall inform him that he has guests. Well, well. Ameliance would invite you inside for tea, but I assume this is not a social visit. You have some matter of import to discuss. Then pray proceed. You have my full attention. Well, it's a bit of a long story, but take each one as it goes. Well, I suppose I should praise you for following the proper protocols this time around. Scholar Montague expressed much the same sentiment. I assure you, will not attempt to circumvent this forum's authority again, well, unless absolutely necessary. Of course. You do understand that restricted archives are restricted for a good reason, yes? If no pressing need exists, why risk the consequences of employing this forbidden knowledge? For a brother who misses his sister. She was his guardian friend, a selfless hero who crossed the rift between worlds to save her homeland from horror and suffering. But the brother has given up on thoughts of reunion. He spends his efforts elsewhere, watching over people, yet healing from the flames of the final days, loyal to his duty while betraying the longing in his heart. 'Tis no vital mission, perhaps, reuniting these siblings, but it feels like a worthy cause to pursue all the same. As one who feared losing his own loved ones and spent years in research to prevent it, surely you appreciate how painful such a separation must be. Reflections are still very much a mystery to us. Offering to share your experiences in the first would constitute a fair exchange for our cooperation. Ah yes, the scholars would love to learn about the first. Now, do not celebrate just yet. The forum must be convinced. I'll add your request to the list of today's deliberations and deliver the decision to you at the Baldessian Annex. Master Levier is one of the top people there, so his word will carry a very large... Baldessian Annex, okay. So his word will carry a lot of weight if we can get it. And the fact we can disguise it as a scholarly research. Plus, we might even find a way to discover it. Ooh, but does this mean the four fiends are going to be the, well, I can't call them primal battles, but the trial battles for this expansion? My understanding is they're renaming a number of the quests. Like, they're instead of being primal battles, they're not going to be trials, since they're not... Since, well, the storyline about the primals is more or less over. We now know the truth about them. They're not proper summonings, but creation magic. And likewise, we have a cure for what they can cause in people. So that storyline is done, but trial fights, they're definitely coming. But trial fights, that's a bit more accurate. Likewise, they're changing the name of Beast Tribe quests, and I'm guessing this is because we're going to be helping more factions to gain reputation with rather than just the Beast Tribes. And I actually like that. In fact, I really hope we get one with the Garleans so that we can learn more about their culture and stuff. We've spent so much time with fighting against the Empire, we never got to learn too much about their regular lives. So, what did the forum decide? Put it bluntly, Master Motoya has burned some bridges here in Charlie and salted the earth for good measure. When it became clear her student was the petitioner in question, well, no few members voiced their discontent. When the chamber was reminded, in no uncertain terms I add, of the incredible debt we owe you and your companions, however. Yeah, that sounds like Master Motoya. Burning bridges and salting the earth. That served to silence the grumbles and stiffen a few spines, and it was agreed that allowing you entry the archives was the least we could do in return. Yeah, I figured we'd have to pull some strings with, you know, the whole saving the world and all that. That is wonderful news. Thank you for speaking on our behalf. Yes, well, as I'm sure you're aware, this permission was not extended lightly. Forbidden knowledge is to be treated with the utmost caution, and there will be repercussions if not. I wish you well in your endeavor, and bid you good day. Ever the same, that one. Uncompromising? Aye, but that very stoicism is exactly what Charlia needs to guide it through not one but two exoduses. Yeah, first they had to leave the smaller Charlian... Because when the Empire invaded the main continent of Eorzea, they had to abandon their colony there, and they did it pretty much immediately to avoid any kind of any being forced to involve themselves in the conflict to any extent. And then, of course, we almost had to flee the planet as a whole to escape the final days. If I were but 5 years younger, I'd cast aside my lecture and join you on your adventures in a heartbeat. Well, now, you do know that age shouldn't stop you from your endeavors. But then again, he might say that it's simply that you're not enough physically to join us. And with the danger we're in, he might simply not be able to handle enough. Yeah, it's probably for the smartest, otherwise he might pull a Sage Tella. That went rather well, I think. As a child, I dreamed up any number of schemes for getting my hands on those forbidden tomes, and now I can simply walk through the door. Our focus will be on finding House Demir's research notes, of course, but the thought of so much knowledge at my disposal has me feeling a little giddy. I'd like to set out as soon as you're ready. Restricted reading. Montague is waiting for you to offer further instructions. You'll be heading directly archives from here, I presume. You presume correctly. Then you'll want to speak with the index page once you arrive. It's been instructed to grant you access to the restricted section. Excellent. Once again, we thank you for your help. Oh, it is my pleasure, believe me. May you find the knowledge you seek. Shall we? Do, 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 do. It's probably slightly faster to go from the studium, so we'll go from there. Hello, Pudding Way. Reading. I guess my pudding wasn't needed to stop the final days after all, but I will persevere. Once people taste it, they'll be even happier than they were before the apocalypse started. I just know it. Well, the Laportes making non-carrot-based edible food is already a nice step up. Discuss... Well, let's talk first. Come on, Coda. Numenon and its forbidden wisdom awaits. To think the set of instructions I laughingly imagined may actually exist but yalms away where you found me napping. But to think the set of instructions I laughingly imagined may actually exist but yalms away from where you found me napping. If I had known of Azadal III's exploits sooner, I could very well have saved myself days of research. Even a children's book might have pointed me in the right direction. To achieve the impossible, one must needs be flexible of mind and look beyond conventional wisdom, a lesson I had already learned but clearly not taken to heart. It happens to all of us, don't worry about it. Alright, there's the index page, mammoth. Reference page, mammoth. Alright, let's have the puppet tell us here what's next. Archon is Stolling, guest identified. Do you wish to proceed to the restricted archives? Yes, we do. Follow me if you would. Watch your step and please note that use of naked flames is highly discouraged. Not forbidden, mind you, just highly discouraged. I guess they figure if anything is going to be lost, it should be the forbidden stuff. Oh, like when we enter the Great Gabal Library. Actually, the whole intro is like a dungeon intro.
If House Demir's notes are to be found anywhere, it will be here. Let us begin.
Oh yeah, this is the Forbidden Archive that Graha was in during the Endwalker trailer. Well, he was caught sneaking around there when he wasn't supposed to. So many books I've yet to read. Yes, we're for one specific volume, you needn't remind me. Untitled Journal. Today, in a world not my own, I met the most beautiful void-born creature. She was so unlike her ravenous brethren, eyes blazing not with hunger but trembling like candles' flame, threatening to flicker out at any moment. I wonder if she is even the proper word. Such distinctions seem inconsequential, insignificant even. All that matters is the love I feel for such an exquisite transcendent being. Though you are tempted to read more, this does not seem to be the volume you are seeking. We can worry about the spicy stuff later, though I am now curious why that was forbidden. Or maybe that's precisely what I'm thinking too hard, and that was the reason it was forbidden. In the year 1564 of the 6th Astral Era, the Amal summoned Ifrit, their patron god. Accounts describe the being as a gigantic lizard-like being with a potent command for fire-aspected magic. If we consider that primal summoning is an act fueled by faith and prayer, it is unsurprising, if not unexpected, the resulting deformed entity should manifest the appearance and powers which is a tribute by its worshippers. What then might emerge from the ether should one who believes in an almighty omniscience attempt the same ritual? Would the scholar himself grace us with his presence? Some other embodiment of divine sagacity? Could this man-made god truly be all-knowing, and if it were, what knowledge would arise? I myself have many questions concerning the nature of this ancient world. With no spell to transport me back to the days of old, could I instead summon a being possessed of encyclopedic wisdom of every age? Yet, with no means to verify its pronouncements, how could one be certain they were true? Though your mind spins with the possibilities discussed therein, this does not seem to be the volume you are seeking. It's certainly an interesting thing to take note of. Oh, what does the index page have to say here? No smoking, no throwing books, and no yelling Eureka in an obnoxiously loud voice. I imagine that's quite common given, you know, the place we're in. Leather-bound log. I guess that explains why that's forbidden, though. The idea of summoning one of the 12 is with primal summoning techniques. Well, although interestingly, this does imply they knew that the primal summoning was actually a form of creation magic rather than proper summoning like we thought at the start. Although I guess since it's forbidden, it makes sense Sophie would be aware of it. Although I imagine that was forbidden more because someone was speculating the possibilities of using the primal summoning, that is, the primal creating technique, to try and create something all-knowing. Following pages detail an advanced method for manipulating a space rift-spanning adventures as divided by Newfound, 9th patron of House Demare. We present these research notes to the facility of Charlene's studium as both a token of friendship and expression of boundless admiration. You appear to have located the volume you speak. Ishtola will need to make the final confirmation. Like we found what we were looking for. Although, oh yeah, I was gonna bring up, during Stormblood, they did have the snake people. They did try to summon the primal Lakshmi with the ability to revive the dead, since her power is theoretically capable of that. Technically, she was able to bring the body of the person who had died back to life, but since their soul was lost to the life stream, they weren't summoned as they properly were. Their body was simply an empty husk. So it does seem there are limits to what they can do. Now, Lakshmi did restore the person to life in the technical sense, but not the spirit of it, since the exact person they were was still gone. It was pretty messed up, but also shows that there's at least some limits to what the primals they summon are capable of, even if you want them for a specific purpose. So I doubt they'd be able to make something that was all-knowing of all the information from the past like that. Have something you'd like to show me, do you? My apologies, I flipped open but a single book and was completely absorbed in its contents. Epiphanies of House Daemir, a forbidden research log detailing an advanced method for manipulating rift-spanning apertures such as those divide. 9th patron. There we are. Well done, Coda. I think you may have found our prize.
Yes, the ether signature is unmistakable. I've felt the traces of House Daemir's resonance many times at the Great Work. Time to see what all the fuss was about.
Let's hope this contains the information we need, otherwise we've just wasted a trip. Certainly has quite the cover, doesn't it?
Among the ranks of the Void Sent, There exist entities with the power to call forth their brethren from beyond. The species known as Atomos, however, is uniquely prodigious in this regard.
We actually fought some of those during the Crystal Tower raid.
From its distended maw, it can expel an endless procession of void-born creatures. A talent which sorely tested the Radiant Host in its battles against these abominations.
Yeah, its mouth is genuinely a gate in its own.
Surmising that the entity itself was acting as a void gate, we endeavored to capture a small specimen and subsequently examine its physiological structure. Our findings revealed that the Atomos had absorbed a planar fissure into its own flesh, which it could expand at will into a functioning gate.
That's actually quite interesting.
Upon further analysis, we identified an ethereal wave pattern emitted during this process. A pattern we were able to emulate by passing crystal-stored ether through a specially designed prism.
So we can
We proceeded to embed said prism into an arcane simulacrum, thus completing what we have dubbed our artificial Atomos.
So that's how they were able to widen it, by using an artificial... That explains why he said a man-made voice send was essential to making it work.
How could I have been so blind to the possibilities? This species, not to mention its ability to summon void scent, has been discussed among academics for years now. Just before the advent of the 7th Umbral Calamity, we received reports of Atomos sightings from every corner of Eorzea. Surely you've at least heard the tales.
Oh yes, that was one of the events at the end of the 1.0.
And still, House Daemir went and built a mock Atomos of their very own. I'm not surprised the Archons consigned their work to a restricted archive. It was no easy task, but at last we've unearthed the volume we've been searching for. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted to stay longer. See what other forbidden titles might be lurking on these shelves. Ah, but that would be abusing the very special privilege we've been granted now, wouldn't it? Better not.
Yeah, we can... Wait, what was that? Restricted reading, objective filled. Oh yeah, more stuff added to the Unending Codex. Congratulations on locating the object of your search. Please move along. As much as I would love to start crafting the Atomos, I'm afraid this is far outside my field of expertise. Fortunately, we know a Haunish alchemist who would be delighted to involve herself in the House Daemir project. Our business here is concluded for the moment. Please pass on our regards to the forum. Your message will be conveyed. Should you wish to indulge on more forbidden literature, I will be here. Patron mode disabled. Security mode engaged. If anyone can help us, Nidana can. I say we return to Thavnair and look for her other great work. In the general sense, it feels like the teleport costs are a bit more expensive, but I guess with the costs of stuff in general going up, it makes sense. Oh, I didn't need to fly anywhere, it seems. All these shallow, sleep-deprived faces, but their eyes burn with fiery zeal. Some things never change. Ishtola tells me you are pursuing a most fascinating study, and that you want me to be a part of it. That is correct, yes. I've no doubt you'll be interested. This research log should speak for itself. Will it now? By the sisters, this is the mark of House Daemir. I never knew such work existed. You should. It was sequestered in the Numenon's restricted archives, after all. It was. But that means every word within is forbidden knowledge. A forbidden tome with forbidden research, and you put it right into my unsuspecting hands? I can hardly wait to read it! To think Daemir were developing such marvelous techniques so long ago. How many innovations have been lost over the centuries, I wonder. Now that you've glanced over the notes, what you say in helping us build the new Maka Tomos? I say yes, 1,000 times yes. Work on a Daemir project that had even the redoubtable scholars of Sharlayan trembling in their sandals? No alchemist of the great work could resist. You're a woman after my own heart. Oh, and I suppose I should ask, what do you mean to do with this big-mouth simulacrum once we've built it? We're going to go into the voids, and... So there's a secret void gate, and it's sealed in the ruins at the bottom of the bounty. Today is a day of revelations indeed. If the purpose of our man-made Atomos is to expand this portal, then I need to see it for myself, I think. Manipulating rift-spanning apertures is not the sort of thing you want to attempt without first taking into account every single factor. Then by all means, accompany us to the vault. I plan to lead us back there shortly, once we've finished gathering the components I require. Components? Sharlayan's markets provide the raw aquamarine and pure water crystals, but I might need help obtaining a small quantity of astrally infused water. For such a liquid, you need to go no further than the font of Maya. The ascetics of old have once favored the place for their meditations, and the water which pools there is known to enliven the flow of ether. That sounds perfect. If you'd be so kind as to fill a flask at the pool, I'll petition Vitra to join us. The idea I have in mind won't amount to much without his authority and command of the Void Gate. Shall we go about it then? We shall meet back here anon. Ah, yes, the place I had to go diving in order to save that, poor individual. Inspect the aetherally dense packet of water. Dang, it's hard to believe it's that close. Oh, well, I guess to be fair, I am flying over the mountains, so it's a bit quicker that way. Don't need to fight that thing, since I'm flying all over all of it. Speaking of the mount I'm using, the Garo event actually returned. They've done a lot of PvP revamps, so it'll be fun to give that a try, but I'll probably do that off stream since I'm not sure or how it'll be. I'm still technically learning how to play it all after all, so... Archon Ishtola requested that I join you, but of her plans, she offered scant detail. Oh, I forgot to mention, the Font of Maya attracts aggressive wildlife, and you should watch out for them when you, go there next time. My apologies. The boy was glad to hear news of the Foundation. It means a new life for him and his sister. Do you have that flask for me? A flask filled with astrally aspected water scooped from the strangely specific point in the depths of Font of Maya. Yes, this should suffice. Thank you, Coda. Ishtola is eager to depart for the vault. Look who I came across. The Stinians seem to need a diversion, and we in turn may have need of his lance. Right then, now that our little party is assembled, let us make our way to the ruins. Will we have need of Matsuya's boat again? Not this time. Once Ishtola informed me of our destination, I arranged for a vessel to be made ready at the Akali. Your Excellency is ever the gracious host, shall we? I'll probably try to get the new Garo stuff, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to be farming PvP. At the same time, it is a nice way to get some more of the gear, and I have been getting a few more of the titles, like I did get the one for... I was able to get the one for Samurai since... Actually, I should probably just explain this. Since the Garo event first showed up in Heaven's Ward, only the Heaven's Ward jobs and below and before then had them. So new ones like Samurai Sage, they didn't have them, but now that the Garo event returned, I guess they decided to add them. I certainly won't be complaining, you can bet that much. It is likely not needed with Varshan long, but I... Oh, whoop. It is likely not needed with Varshan along, but I held on to the map against the chance we might return to the ruins. All this time I thought the tales of Azadal's horde were no more than a drunken sailor's fancies. You need not keep your weapons closer at hand. The guardians will not attack if I am present, so... They should leave you be. The ship is yours to command. Ah, thanks. We set sail at once. Oh, this is exciting. Azadal's legacy. To see the truthful legend with my own eyes. All aboard for the treasure vault. Poor Vitra. He really should have spoken with the Stinian before we left. I shudder to think what we've cost them in terms of construct materials. I thought we'd clear this place of constructs. 'Twould seem a few stragglers remained. He laid waste to them ere I could utter a single word. Oh dear. Well, Stinians like us, definitely the person to call in if you need something destroyed completely.
These alone were impressive enough, but I never dreamed such a treasure lay hidden in the depths of the bounty. It may have been helpful to know this device existed, Your Excellency.
My apologies. The gate was a secret I shared with none but my closest advisors. I feared for what might happen should those with ill intentions learn of its existence.
What is it you're doing now?
There's something I wish to verify. The NOAA reports claim that a short stint into the void carries little risk of etheric imbalance. Should one suffer an injury, however, or if one's expedition drags on longer than intended, that risk becomes significantly greater.
So a form of protection is what you're seeking?
Graha theorized that a warding scale would confer protection from the void's corrupting influence. But I would prefer to test that hypothesis before we set foot in the 13th ourselves.
Yeah, I did mention that it should protect them from corruption, especially now that we know even the Blessing of Light is technically just a traveler's ward of sorts. And the warding scale is also a ward.
So, this is an experiment of sorts.
Yes, an experiment. Tell me, how would you go about testing the efficacy of the warding scale?
Perhaps send a familiar?
Very good. I see you've been paying attention.
While going ourselves is definitely an option. In fact, that's what happened when testing the warding scales against the Tower of Zot. However, that is, she would probably berate us for being foolhardy.
As Vritra sent his simulacrum, so too shall we rely on a familiar to bear the brunt of any unpleasant consequences. Now, a lowly imp can navigate a fissure, no matter how narrow. Which means an arcane entity of similar stature should be able to manage the same.
Imps are also pretty weak, even...
I hadn't wanted it to come to this, but no other familiars will do, I'm afraid.
Frog? One of the frogs?
I mislike the sound of that. What manner of fiend does she mean to summon?
From ocean rise and cloudbank form, from mountain spring and rainfall storm, from river flow and life be born. Water, water, froth and foam!
Ready your arms. I fear she's been possessed.
You mean the magical girl transformation made you think...
Oh, come now. That was adorable.
If this is the frog familiar, does that mean Matoya did that to summon the frogs? Okay, it's not. Seems this wasn't what she intended.
Though not my first choice. These familiars I conceived of as a child have the best chance of fitting through the gate.
Oh, I see. That explains why she had to do the magical girl transformation to create them, because she made it when she was younger, and that's exactly how the
Only wish
incantation
my
went.
younger self had considered a more dignified ending to the creation ritual. In any case, these two should serve us well. This one will bear a warding scale. And when they return from the 13th, we can observe how the talisman, or absence thereof, has affected the progress of the Void's corruption.
Oh, the unprotected one's not gonna like
If I
that
could
very much.
impose upon you to open the gate. Your Excellency?
Ah, yes, of course.
We should also be wary of void scent slipping through while we conduct our experiment. Estinian, you are to keep Nadana safe from harm.
As you say.
Even inexperienced adventurers can take on the little imps, though, so if something that small gets through, it shouldn't be too bad.
You best be on your guard as well.
I can mess with her. Froth and foam. Don't worry, I'm always ready.
And we are glad for it. Let us begin, shall we? Nixies, into the void.
Well, as with any scientific experiment, you always have one control and one... Yeah, that's the actual experiment for comparison, so it makes sense. And since they're familiars, I don't believe they're technically sapient, so this is definitely the best way to do it. Every time I come here, it reminds me of that dark portal above the Crystal Tower, and the final lash of Asdaya's trail as she plunged into the void. I struggled to picture Ishtola as a little girl. Easy to believe she sprang fully formed. It's easier to believe she sprang up fully formed for one of Master Matoya's cauldrons. Sisters save me. I'll never see Ishtola the same way again. Froth and foam indeed. We need wait a time for a meaningful result. To measure a meaningful result, be patient and keep watch for any intruders.
I think we've waited long enough. Nixies, return to my side.
Oh dear.
Thank you, little one. You did well.
Poor thing. Its essence has been irrevocably warped.
Alright, so it's good. We know that the sinister voice.
We're out of time. I must reseal the void gate.
They're coming through!
Quing. They can't stop me in a stinning.
Name of Alzadal III, I bar this door unto the void.
Well, that was a sharp lesson in the dangers of void gates.
And what of our experiment? I'd say the results speak for themselves.
The unprotected Nixie has suffered extensive etheric corruption. As Nidana observed, it's well on its way to becoming a void scent. The one merged with the talisman, however, appears unaffected. I sense no changes to its equilibrium. Rest now, little ones.
So the wards work.
Kraha's theory was correct then.
So it would seem. But while our second familiar was untouched by void energies, the talisman itself shows signs of degradation.
Oh dear.
It was, of course, originally designed to shield the soul from primal tempering. It stands to reason that etheric corruption of a different sort would affect it differently.
So basically, so it wasn't designed to protect from this kind of
We
corruption.
need to modify the warding scale's design to account for the 13th's uniquely unstable ether.
You've said much of the Void's instability, but my imagination fails me. What manner of place is this broken world?
Ah, my apologies. I forget that not all of us spend our days sequestered in dusty archives. The 13th is a reflection of the source that was drowned in a flood of darkness.
Yeah, long story short, the Ascians were trying to connect. We're probably about to explain it.
In Emmett Selk's own words, this tragedy was a result of the Ascians' attempts to force a rejoining. They erred in their haste, and made of that world a useless void.
Yeah, exactly. If I had explained it, that would have been redundant since Shola was about to do so. It was before they learned how to properly handle rejoinings.
You remember Una Kalhai, the unusual child we met during our troubles with the Warring Triad. He explained the fate of the 13th thus. The champions of that ill-fated world used a stone known as Auracite to contain the power of primals, but those self-same heroes were gradually corrupted by the Auracite's bleeding energies, transforming into fiends with an endless hunger for ether. By the time anyone thought to oppose them, Light's strength had grown too feeble, and the balance of the 13th tipped into eternal darkness.
Ukalai is unfortunately a character that only really had relevance during Heaven's Ward against the Warring Triad. I was kind of hoping we'd see more of him in the future, but aside from a cameo in Endwalker, they sadly didn't do too much with him.
It was Elidibus, as I recall, who rescued Unakalhai's spirit from his final battlefield.
Unakalhai, that's right.
But I wonder if there were others whom the emissary saved from oblivion.
The barmaid of the Wandering Stairs. That's right, she was the Shadow Keeper the entire time.
The server, Ciela, wasn't it? And you say she was another of Elidibus's pawns?
That's right. After doing all the role quests in Shadowbringers, you eventually learn that Ciela... Well, you could have figured it out early, because during all the role quests, you recount the adventures of Ardbert's companions before they've got turned into senior monsters. However, Ciela was a member of them who, strangely, was not met at any point before. Not even when, during Heaven's Ward, when you fight Ardbert and his companions, when they took the role of the Warriors of Darkness against you. So there was definitely, you could definitely tell there was something up with her before she revealed herself that indeed she was the Shadow Keeper they were preparing to fight the whole time.
I see. So Ciela, or rather Silver, was beguiled by the same dreams of heroism as Unakalhai. And what of your own experience? Will you tell us of what you observed during Noah's expedition?
It's kind of funny that originally the Crystal Tower was just a fan service 24-player raid in Realm Reborn, but now they decided let's make it a major part of the entire game's story. But I'm glad they did, don't get me wrong. I doubt it was going to be that important before, back when it was just the Tomb of Emperor Zand and it was going to be a raid during the 1.0.
The sunless Stygian expanse, infested with legions of ether-starved monstrosities. A void in every sense of the word.
What you have described in such lurid detail is exactly why I hesitate to encourage you.
Yeah, the Void is a pretty dangerous place, even the players
Worry
couldn't
not,
last
great
too long.
Feature. Our journey into the 13th is but the first leg of a longer voyage. A voyage that shall lead us to other reflections, to new mysteries and discoveries. And I mean to be there every step of the way. But first, I must focus on refining the warding talisman.
Then I can begin work on constructing an artificial Atomos. Or I could if I had the relevant manuals to hand. Might I be so bold as to request access to the Satrap's family archives? Your Excellency?
Oh, yes. That can be arranged. I will speak to my officials upon our return.
We will see you back in the city then.
I guess this is where the storyline's going to be ending for the moment. Alright. So it's looking like the four fiends are going to be our trial battles for the expansion. Yeah, I'm not going to accidentally click decline again, don't worry. Seeing the Void's terrors firsthand was certainly an experience, but I doubt fear of such creatures is the root of Vitra's hesitation. Satrap's duty. Stola ponders the next stage of your preparations to enter the Void. Once Nidada succeeds in replicating the mock Atomos, the door to the 13th will be ours to open. Will you be crossing the threshold alongside us? I realize this is more my endeavor than yours. To be honest, I have no interest in visiting the void myself. Might we discuss this later? There is something I must do first. As nice as it'd be to have his lance with us, no point in forcing it. Why does everyone insist on being so secretive? I at least had a good reason for not wanting to explain my Nixie ritual. Shall we proceed with our preparations then? As we saw, the warding scale can be effective at protecting the bearer from other sources of etheric corruption. Nevertheless, the talisman's durability will need to be improved if it is to withstand the void influence for a prolonged length of time. And I think that is a problem we can address without involving the brilliant but busy alchemist who created it. Who do we know that excels at this sort of structural augmentation? Garland Ironworks is the key one here, but the Alligans are also pretty good at that. Yeah, let's not mess with her. Let's go with Garland Ironworks, the obvious solution. An excellent suggestion. As I recall, Sid himself is no stranger to the Void and its volatile energies. With his experienced hand at the helm, I have every confidence the Ironworks can strengthen the warding scale. Although I guess the Alligans did make a deal with the Cloud of Darkness, so they'd also have it too. Come, let us visit their operation in Ralgar's Reach and commission their best and brightest. Do 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 do. Ralgar's Reach. Oh dang, it just teleported me there. Well, I certainly appreciate it, that's for sure. Perhaps this young man can locate Sid for us. Koda, what brings you to the Ironworks? We have a commission for you and your president, actually, assuming he's available. Master Sid? Certainly, I'll see if he has a moment free. Here comes the cutscene. Alright, let's appraise Sid on our situation here. A pleasure as always. I hear you have a job for us. Yeah, what we're thinking is heading to the void to find a lost dragon? That almost sounds pedestrian compared to your last adventure. Honestly, I don't know if you could say anything would surprise me after the whole media on that bloody mess. Unfortunately, I'm not sure there can be any story that won't feel like a slight step down, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun, right? Alright, let's take a look at this talisman of yours. You said there were signs of degradation. Seems like some manner of corrosion set in around a scratch on its surface, much as the void's corruption seeped into Nero through his wounds. In which case our best bet may simply be to prevent the scale from being damaged in the first place. And how might we achieve that? We have a coating agent for strengthening trinkets and the like, but I'd be wary of applying any compound which might upset the scale's delicate alchemical balance. Far safer to simply dress it in armor. Armor? Like a suit of armor? We'll construct a protective casing, one utilizing metal alloys with high ethereal conductivity so as not to impede the talisman's primary function. A suit of armor, as you said. Nero's compiled data on the 13th, so I'll have him pitch in with a design just to be sure. If only it weren't such an ordeal to convince him to follow our safety protocols. I swear I've never had such a reckless employee. In any case, we may need some time to untangle the particulars. Understandable, we know how busy your schedule is. The final result will doubtless be worth the wait. Ha! The hard part will be ducking Jessie and her constant barrage of demands while we sneak about doing the fun stuff. We'll see what we can do. I think we can leave this in Sid's capable hands. Let us return to the great work and see how Nidana's doing with the mock Atomos. Alright, here we go.
Ah, hey, Stola. The adjustments are going well, I hope?
'Tis a lengthy process, but the end is in sight, yes.
That's wonderful news. I myself had some good fortune searching through the Satrap's private records. What I found was a transaction log dated around the same period as when Al-Zadal's legacy was built. It included a purchase list of highly exclusive alchemical components. And I knew I'd discovered the key to making the artificial atomos.
Yeah, if something stands out as particularly odd, that's probably worth investigating.
I then visited the High Crucible to commission the materials. After I'd explained my requirements, I was beset by volunteers insisting I allow them to help with the entire project.
The usual reaction to someone forcing open a void gate is to run for the hills. Varnish academics certainly are a different breed.
I don't know, I imagine the Charlians wouldn't be too against joining if given the chance.
The alchemists of old were cut from a similar cloth. The unknown held no fear for them. Indeed, they were ever eager to seek new knowledge, regardless of the danger.
And were you not also fearless, heedless even, in your determination?
My sire entered his dormancy before I was hatched. And so it was Ashdaya who kept my eggs safe and warm. It created a bond between us. Even long after I learned to fend for myself, I rarely strayed from her side. She was my guardian, my sister, my dear companion. And not a single day passes that I do not mourn her absence. No matter how deep the darkness, I would not surrender my search. I promised myself the time would come when we would once more take to the skies together. But I am satrap now.
The Radiant Host is here to serve, Your Excellency.
Nabdeen, what is this about?
Celestinian told us of your predicament. For centuries you have protected Rads at Han, never showing your true self, hiding behind a curtain and living only in service to the people. Your dedication meant more to us than your deceit, and so did we accept you as our rightful ruler. After all that you have sacrificed for this nation, did you imagine we would begrudge you your heart's desire? We survived the final days. We are a strong and proud people. We, the Radiant Host, will keep Thavnair safe in your absence.
I am grateful for your loyalty and for your encouragement. And yet,
Now you listen to me, Varshan. You are wearing that face, after all. As I have told you before, you are a little brother to us all. And if you are family, then so too is your sister. We are there for you if you need us. But do not ask us to sit by and watch while you abandon a sibling you have ached to rescue for millennia.
We will succeed in opening the way. It is only a matter of time. All you need do is prepare to step through to the other side.
Your Excellency, I wanted to thank you for building the orphanage.
It means so much that my sister and I will have a place to be together, safe and happy. And I hope that you and your sister can be together again too.
Well, are you going to just wallow in uncertainty forever?
You're saying I should seize this chance? Take heart and protect them well. Such were the words I once said to you. And here I stand, failing to live up to them.
The way I see it, he needs closure more than anything else. Even if it is too late to save her, simply he being able to bring her body back would at least allow him to rest, knowing that he at least manage to bring her home.
If my heart is torn, I am fit to protect neither Ajdaya nor Radzathan. My people, I have come to a decision. Vashan will depart Thavne for a time. My dragon self will remain in the palace, but only to conduct the satrap's most essential duties. While I am focused on controlling this vessel, there may be matters that escape my attention. I rely on you, my trusted friends, to watch over one another until I return.
Take care and fair fortune, little brother. Many tears would be shed should you come to harm.
I would not dare make you cry.
We'll have the Atomos built before you know it. When a project like this comes along, we give it our all. We give it our full and undivided attention. Sleep? Ha, who needs that? Oh, that reminds me, I should really finish that other project I was working on. Excellent. What, someone needed to give that boy a good talking to? You don't supposed to be reprimanded, did you? I did just yell at the satrap. Sometimes someone needs a good slap to remind them what they're here for. What their goals are, I mean. Convincing others to follow in their hearts is not my forte. I would have gladly let our more philosophical comrades take the lead had they been there. Hey, I think you did quite a bit, Estinian. I will not squander this chance you have given me. I will find her. You surprised me, Estinian. For a lone wolf, you've shown an unusual degree of, shall we say, involvement in helping Vicha reach this conclusion. 'Twas the greater good. Worm's thundering sighs were keeping his citizens awake at night and had travelers believing the palace was racked by some unnatural storm. What of your own answer, then? You seem disinclined to venture into the void. When I was one with Nidhogg, his vengeful thoughts were my thoughts, his endless rage my rage, and the soul-chilling grief he nursed for Ratatosker's death. I would not wish such agony upon a foe, let alone a friend and ally. If there's a chance we can spare Vicha the pain, I will gladly follow you. Bit of an unusual crew we have here, then, huh? Indeed, but perfect for our purpose, I should think. I'd rather not bother the Scions with aught less than a dire threat to the star. Now, on to specifics. Unlike the first, where the flood of light was halted before its devastation was complete, the 13th has been utterly subsumed by darkness. My plan, as such, is to explore the void in stages, withdrawing to safety after each brief foray, which would be more convenient had we some manner of base camp nearer to the gate itself. One of the palace chambers should serve. Come, let's reconvene outside. What? Ether. Ethernet teleportation, and here. So make a do that. I was put up in a guest room in the palace while I awaited my audience with Vitra. I expect we'll be given some use of something similar. Conducting our expedition out of the Rising Stones would raise just as many questions as recruiting too many scions. Facing here in Razathan, we might be expected to appear road-weary from our local explorations. And so we require suitable accommodations. Might we make something available for our guests? All the chambers are currently hosting the great mounds of treasure we carried out of the vault. Once the Foundation's activities begin in earnest, however, we can redistribute the trove and make a room or two ready for habitation. Good, please inform me when you've completed the arrangements. As you heard, we will have you settled in the Megaduda in time. As ever, that you are most gracious, Your Excellency. You risk yourselves to aid me in my search for Asdaya. Providing comfortable quarters is the least I can do. I only wish we knew more about our destination. The gods only know how long our explorations might possibly take, or what our chances of success might possibly be. Succeed or fail, I'm grateful to you for convincing me to make the attempt. Yeah, I think even Varshan is fully aware she could already be dead by the time we get there, but even just having confirmation would do a lot to let him sleep at ease, and even just bringing her body home would do a lot to ease his mind, I think. Of course, our goal is to find her alive, and I imagine we will, but we might have to fight her. But hey, we were able to save Nero. We could certainly save her, if that's the case. On that note, I will return to the great work and lend what help I can to Nidana. If you've preparations to make ere we venture, now's the time. All I need is my armor and my lance. Perhaps I'll train with the Radiant Host to pass the time before we depart. You know what this means. You know what this means to me, Kota, but my purpose need not consume you as well. We are headed to another world for what joy you can experience. Find what joy you can experience, for you are a traveler and adventurer at heart. This I know. I have the feeling this is where the chapter is going to end for this particular patch story. Meanwhile, in the 13th... Yeah, the 13th was before the Ascians learned exactly what they needed to do to perform a rejoining. Later, they found out the proper way to do it by having a similar elemental issue occur on the source as the one in the one they wish to rejoin, but they didn't know it here. So, unfortunately, this world fell to darkness. Here we are, Golbez. That's interesting. Oh, that's not Golbez, that's... the Reaper that... ghost that was used by Xenos.
And thus I am returned. To be small, bereft of saviors.
I still feel the Reaper spirits have some sort of connection to the host. But I guess we'll be finding out soon, won't we? Let paths unwalked, adventures spur, pulses quicken, spirits stir. Yeah, unfortunately, this is where the story is going to be ending for now. Newfound adventure. Guess I could do an expert roulette before I call the stream, so let's do precisely that. It will be a few minutes since I am a DPS, and DPSs have to wait the longest for the queues. I think I'll put together a fashion plate, glamour plate, that's what they're called, for my Reaper outfit eventually. I think I'm mostly going to stick to this kind of outfit, which is kind of funny. I think I mentioned, but usually the first wave of the first tier of gear doesn't look nearly as good as the later ones, but this one surprised me. Like, the first ones for Stormblood was Genji gear themed around Final Fantasy V, I think it was. I wasn't really a fan of it, but the diamond ones later I was a bigger fan of, for example. So I guess it makes sense Final Fantasy V would be a common part of Stormblood, since, you know, Shinryu and Omega were a major part of it. And I actually believe this game is the first time Omega has an actual personality rather than just being a bonus boss, which I thought was quite nice. I didn't expect to learn about his world either, but it's sad to know it also ended in his absence. It did say that he chased Midgard Sormir for eons, after all. Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo. Oh dang, the tank didn't queue up in time. How embarrassing. But I guess tanks have a pretty quick queue, so if he realizes that he can just queue up again, he'll probably get it pretty quickly. Roll waiting list number 1. There we are. This was much more immediate. Samurai. I think I remember describing this place as being like, I think it was an MC Escher painting, or I think that was the right one. I might be completely wrong. I mean, I was the strange person who mixed up X-Death and Golbez. Although I do wonder what they'll do with this interpretation of Golbez. He was a tragic villain of sorts in the original, so... Whoops. Smiley. Yeah, MC Escher's the painting is the right kind. I just typed it in. Look. Welcome to Smiletown Shooter. Here's your stay. Enjoy your stay. It will be very brief. Off my lawn. Upside down, so that's where he switches the two. Yeah, he's switching the faces. I'm angry, so I need to be sad. Get the sad face to touch me. Wait, that came out wrong. Here we are. That could have been bad, depending on what happened next. Hello, fellow casters. Oh wait, there's no casters here. We are. Trying to decide if I want to make my main tank a Dark Knight like the one we see here, or a Gunbreaker. Gunbreaker is a very busy job, so I missed 2 there. That's pretty embarrassing. For healer, I usually have stuck to Astro, but since I'm not sure about the changes, I've been trying to do a bit more Sage lately. since we have no AoE limit breaks here, I'm not sure what there's not too much I can use it on, I guess. What skin is this guy using? Seryu's Sanctified Katana. Oh, there's a Lapora down there. I never saw that. Huh. I swear one of these days I'm gonna remember Soul So between pulls. I've been authorized to eliminate all visitors with extreme prejudice. Apologies for the inconvenience. Where? Guess I should go get my gear repaired really quick. I can worry about the rest of it later then. And a sundowner? Darn, probably not a Metal Gear Rising reference. Well, let's see here. Guess that's everything I promised to do for now. I don't want to do too much grinding on stream since I don't think it's quite as engaging, so I'll go ahead and end it here. Alright. Well, for now, we're getting our preparations to go into the 13th, and it seems we'll be facing Golbez and the Four Fiends very soon. I look forward to it. Until next time, thank you for watching, hope you had a good time, and I'll see you later.